行动还是死亡？
Are we ready, Julie? If you're talking, I'm not hearing you, Julie. No.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Vanessa Kobilis. I think Julie might be having some technical difficulties, so I'll go ahead and start. Serena, are you sharing or is that Julie's
That's
screen?
Julie.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Kobilis. I'm the State Incident Business Lead for BLM, acting as the NWCG IBC representative for BLM. Welcome to this morning's session where we're going to be covering the preseason updates in regards to the caterer showers, cruise, and Viper, as well as inspections. So the screen that you're seeing on or the slide that you're seeing on your screen is the resources. That's our NWCG IBC website. This is being recorded, and eventually we'll have links on that site to everything that you're going to see in addition to the PowerPoint, any PowerPoints that we have this week in this workshop. Some typical things for today. Please make sure that you guys stay muted. If you have a question, you are welcome to use the chat function. And we will get those answered either at the end of the presentation or during the presentation based on the presenters. And then you can also come on and ask your question, but please raise your hand and we'll call on you when we get an opportunity to do that. So, hi, Julie, I see you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yay!
Okay, yay. Of course, yes.
Go ahead and take it
Anyway.
away, Julie.
Oh, no, you're doing great. I was gonna say, anyways, I'm still on the struggle bus this morning. I apologize to everyone. So I am also going to be working on a feedback form there'll be some links in the chat at the end. We are going to talk about today or this morning's session is all of our national updates on those caterers and showers, Viper, and some changes with inspections this year with those Viper inspections. So I'm very excited. I think we're gonna kick off maybe with Dana. Are you going first, or is it gonna be Kevin?
I believe it will be me first.
Okay, and are you driving your slides?
I'll drive my slides if I can figure out to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, I know, right? Queen of technically challenged for sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Hey, Serena, can you unshare me, please?
Yeah, you're not sharing it at all at this time.
Oh, perfect. Yay. Okay, good.
Okay. Share. Where's the share button? Down there. Okay. You want screen 2. Okay. Let me know if that showed up.
What's up, Dana?
Looks great.
Okay. Awesome. Now I gotta move this out of the way. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Price, and I am the contracting officer for the National Caterers and the National Showers and Call When Needed Showers. I will let the others introduce themselves, but also with me is should be Jeff Gardner. He is my branch chief and the acting CO for the cruise, and Jared Simataki and Kevin Toombs with our cores for FAM. So I'll let them introduce themselves and then we'll get going.
Morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Toombs. I'm the program specialist with Washington Office National Contracts. Like Dana said, I'm the COR over National Catering, National Showers, and National Contract Crews.
Good morning, Jared Simataki, program specialist with Washington Office Fire and Aviation Management, and the COR with the kitchens, the showers, and the crews with Kevin.
I guess this is my spot to introduce myself. I was going to do that when we got to the cruise, but I'll do it now. I'm Jeff Gardner. I'm the branch chief for the Equipment Services branch that houses the Viper portfolio, the cruise, the caterers, and the showers.
Okay. I don't know what my screens just did. Okay. Well, since we have this, we'll run with that and hopefully I don't need that other screen. But in the past, I was with logistics. We had some retirements a couple of years ago. So they kind of rolled me over to ESB, the equipment support or services branch with Jeff for the last year. So I'm kind of a hodgepodge between the two. We do have links that we'll go with. I moved it to the resources page at the end, so we'll go over that then. Starting off with, we have the 25 to 29 mobile food service unit, the caterers. We have 18 national mobile food vendors consisting of 31 units. The period of performance for the entire IDIQ is 7/1 of 25 through 12/31 of 29. We are right now with a base and 4 option years. We're right now in option year 1. We haven't awarded, this is the parent IDIQ. We haven't awarded the DDP task orders yet. We're just waiting for final word from the SBA and things. So we're on the edge of having those awarded, but right now, this is what we have is 32 caterers at their home staging areas. Nothing has changed over the past years. We did some minor nutritional updates, some things like that, some dispatch updates. We did add some disciplinary or deductions, some teeth to our bite. But the only thing that really changed was the 200 threshold. Almost everyone experienced that last year since we did do the 7/1 switchover. So the new numbers are 200 at 72 hours. The only thing that you'll notice that we're asking the teams and everything is if they are doing a training camp, a training assignment. So one of the crews has 4 days left on their rotation, but the fire is out. So they're going to send that crew to your fire for their last 4 days. That's an additional 20 that might put you over the 200. And they might be there, like I said, for 4 days. We're telling the teams to make sure they communicate with us and let us know what's going on out there. Because if they're running as a training team or they've got 17 local crews, I don't think there's such a thing, but the numbers are going to be big, but you don't need to go to a national if you're using local resources call it, or the type 3 EERA caterers, because you can do that. And if they tell us that that's what's happening, when the caterers call us, which they will immediately call us as soon as they see this number over 72 hours, they're on the phone with us. We can be like, oh yeah, that's a training camp, or they're local. So the crews, because the crews are going to go home and eat if they're local. They're not going to eat at our caterer. They're not going to shower at our shower. I mean, my uncles came home if there was a fire in the Bitterroot. So that's the key things with that is the 72 hours, 200, but letting us know what's going on. When we finally get our DDPs awarded, we will move to a 3-tier priority level. Right now, all of our caterers are under the 3rd tier. So they're all at their parent physically IDIQ dispatch points or their staging areas for their home location. How it works now is we've locked it so it's under 450 miles. All caterers under 450 that are available will be run first in the lowest price workbook. If none of them are available, they'll move to the over 450. This is so that we get our caterers within that 45 mile per hour, 10-hour limit. Once we get the awards made, everybody's is pretty happy so far, or will be when it happens, is the 1st tier or 1st priority. They're at their DDP task order, they're at their DDP, and they're within their MAP, their mandatory availability period. What that means is we now go to closest resource. So if the example I've been using, if you're in Wenatchee and Wenatchee DDP is available, that caterer is coming to feed you. If they're not, we'll go to the next closest, the next closest, to the next closest. If no one's available there, we will then move to the 2nd tier, which is everybody who's outside of their MAP. And then if nobody's available there, once all DDPs are awarded, we could have some remaining. So there should be a 3rd priority. So at the end of the day, if everybody is out, we might have a couple available left to get us before we have to start doing EERAs at the national level. Ordering, nothing changed on ordering. The first meal is always dinner. Nothing has changed on that. The only thing that we've been pointing out to the camps is to make sure that they're, if they find out any travel restrictions, trying to work with making sure that gets put out so it saves time. Because we actually had a caterer who got so far and was like, well, that's a 40-foot road restriction we weren't aware of. I'm a 50-foot trailer. I can't go there. So we had to start the whole dispatch process all over, and it put them a day behind on getting meals. So we're telling the camps to make sure, the teams to make sure that they get with the local AAs or whatever to find out, are there any road restrictions? Burnovers, things like that happen immediately, that of course you're not going to know to put on the SRF. But Nick is looking for this kind of stuff. They are also looking, if these aren't filled out for them, complete and total, they will kick it back to the camp and tell them to read it, to fill it out right. Payments, nothing has changed on payments over the years. The national caterer is still going to send their own invoice package to the ASCEERA inbox. They are not, of habit, going to go to finance at any time. Now, they've all been told, though, if finance needs copies of their packets for cost sharing or tracking or whatever reason, they all will give it to you. They've all been told that if you guys need it, if the finance people need it, to give it with no arguments. So it's just not their habit to do it anymore. And they'll do everything. We've also been reminding the teams that the government representative, who is only the IC, the FOODLE, the logs, and in case of showers, the FACL, we haven't appointed anyone else in the IC teams as an official representative. So these guys are not approving that invoice. They are only accepting the services. We're really getting out and trying to emphasize to the teams that this year, there's a big difference between the two words. Accepted means we've just taken it. Yes, we accept that you did the service. Approved means we've accepted, we've approved this, interest starts. And we all know it could take 30, 60, 90 days before the ASC gets through some of these invoices. I hate to say it, but it happens. So that's a big term that we're trying to get out to the teams is you guys are accepting it. You're not approving it. Again, ASC will catch it in a heartbeat. If anything's missing, they will kick it back. We will never hear it until the caterer can't work with them anymore. Then it will start getting bumped over to us. We do ask the teams to make sure their FOODLE is putting their stuff on there because we might need to reach out to them for confirmation of if we have to change an invoice or something. So we have been pushing to remind them that they got to fill everything out. One thing with our inspections, our caterers and showers and crews are not inspected the same way as the Viper and everybody else. We have our own inspection form that is the contractual inspection form. The safety form that the teams are using is not the legally binding inspection form. You cannot go to they cannot go to the caterer with that form and say, well, this is all wrong. You need to fix. No, they need to crosswalk it with ours. Ours is, from what I've seen, and Mary and Jared did go through the two, so the crosswalk works. Ours is a little bit more general, like, hey, follow all federal codes and regulations. This one, sorry, I saw the chat pop up. The safety form might be, you violated this specific statute. So just cross it over to this one. This is the one that the caterers and the showers and everybody will sign. And this is the one that you use as your documentation for everything moving forward with stuff. Field performance evaluations. This is the precursor to their CPARs at the end of the season. We do have a centralized inbox that we do have a team that goes through. This inbox, you'll notice, is for everybody, the caterers, showers, crews, Viper. I don't know about Viper, but a lot of the other, they're all going to this inbox with a team that gets it to our specific programs. We are telling the teams to make sure that they are following the naming convention. It is part of the standards. This is also necessary to help with getting it put to the right folders without making the team go through and open up every single one and rename and then move it. We're also writing the teams to make sure that they're getting one document instead of 4 separate pages. The same thing with this. Make sure it's one PDF. So far, the teams have been pretty receptive to that. What we have new, we'll cursor over some of this because it's more for teams, but we do relate to the teams that there is a difference between our two services. The hot food delivery service is the AIMS via EERAs, and these vehicles are at the company address. They are dispatched from their company address. They are paid a daily rate and a mileage. My hot food delivery vehicles are part of my national IDIQ, the caterer contracts. I'm going to have to just get the numbers here eventually and put it in here. I believe we have 5 or 6 caterers that have 8 hot food delivery vehicles. They have to bring it with them when they come to camp. They can't leave it at the dispatch point or at staging area and then 3 days later bring it up. It has to be accounted for the minute they pull in. Otherwise, it's a no-go. If they bring it up afterwards, we're telling them they are not allowed to use it. In fact, excess property should not be there, so it needs to be getting kicked back to the dispatch point. We're making sure the caterers are well aware of this. Don Keever is, as said in the chats, Don Keever is the POC for the Ames, and then I'm the POC for the, if you have questions about how the caterers use it. It is possible to have both of these at one incident. It is up to the team how they want to use them. My guys are well aware that they're not to complain if this gets used and they don't. They are a supplemental item. It's not required. We aren't required to use it. Again, they can't bring it from base. One thing that we are getting out to everybody too is the hot food delivery is not, it doesn't belong on the SRF for my caterers. If the NIC sees this, they will kick it back because that's not the determining factor. So the RO cannot have it, the SRF cannot have it. They'll have to kick it back and have it removed. If they do see something with the hot food, they'll kick it back to the GACs to go to Ames. We are explaining additional MFSUs to them that how this works is, yes, the teams have the freedom to bring in extra caterers, but there is a process that we have to follow. On the unit summary, there is a max number of meals served. Some caterers are 1,200, which is our minimum. Some are 15. I think we have a couple who are even 2,000, 3,000. That means they can serve that number of meals at that meal. So 3,000 breakfasts, 3,000 dinners. They have to be allowed to serve up to that number. The team bringing in 100 teams, that doesn't mean that you get to bring in another caterer just because you're bringing in 100 teams, 100 crews. You have to go to the caterer and see if they can manage that because they need to be allowed to serve up to their number. The only times that we get out of that is if your spike camp is over 4 hours. I'm really pushing the camps to think about that. If it's a 4-hour hold on food, we shouldn't be getting food out to the camp or to the spike camp at 3.5 hours. That gives us only half an hour to feed 1,000 people. Math doesn't add up. So we're asking the teams when they're out there and they're looking at things like this to start communications early with Kevin, Jared, and I so that we can help figure out what a good course of action is. We also have you have a caterer 2 hours away, so it's a good thing, but a fire burned the road out. So now it's a 4.5-hour drive around. Doesn't work. We bring another caterer in. When the road gets fixed, that second caterer doesn't go home. That is now his fire. That's now his services. We're really iterating the fact that the caloric intake for this contract is for the firefighters, not for the teams. And I tell the teams every time that I also will shoot myself in the foot with this because I'm a proc trainee, so I'm also on teams. So it could happen that if you're feeding a spike camp of 1,000 and your base camp has 100, we need to start the conversation of moving the caterer up to the spike camp and the base camp getting the hot can. We've already received word last year. We actually had a fackle or a logs who said specifically, I will not eat from a hot can. So we brought in another caterer. As soon as we found out, we sent the other caterer home. That did end up costing us almost a week of double orders for everything because legally that food was technically the other caterer's food. Now, we are letting the teams know there are other resources. They can reach out to the Job Corps caterers and ask. It's not a guarantee. It's not a promise, but they can ask if one of the Job Corps caterers can come out. They can't serve the food, they can't cook the food, but what they can do is they can get the experience setting up a camp, setting up a service line, and then the optics now are, I am not eating from a hot can. I'm actually being served from a line. So it gives the Job Corps that experience for them. There's 3 or 4 kitchens. They do have number restrictions. So we are letting them know that, hey, there are workarounds. We're also reiterating with them that camp is our responsibility as a government. It is not the caterers. Last year, we had a lot of people who kept complaining to Jared, Kevin, and I that the caterer didn't have a camp set up, bad seating, no tenting. No, that is not the caterer's fault, and it is not their issue. Now, you can rent extra tents and seating from them and set up, but it is not their job to run that camp. It is ours. The same thing with the food. Once that food is given to the hot food delivery vehicle or our old-fashioned truck with the heated blankets or whatever the team is using, that is ours. It is no longer the caterer's. It just seems to be that it's easier to just blame the caterer. No, there are instances that it is our fault. And then we are also going over the Lend-Lease with them because there is a difference on my terminology for Lend-Lease and what everyone else, because I know that like tomorrow or later this afternoon, you guys have a Lend-Lease session. My Lend-Lease or the catering Lend-Lease is specifically only if we are at PL4, 5, and there are no national caterers available. You have a new fire that starts 20 miles down the road, heck, 3 hours down the road, 2.5 hours down the road. They can't get a caterer, so they can Lend-Lease from you. The thing is, they have to get an S number from the GAC because the caterer has to do 2 separate invoice packets. We don't have it built any longer where we can put all the notes, oh, this was fire, P code, da-da-da-da-da, down in the miscellaneous charges. We don't have that capability or function any longer. So it has to be 2 separate invoices. And that second one is an S code. The GACs and the NIC have all been aware of this. Nobody should give the teams any flack. But if they do, it was newly introduced last year, clarified. We've been trying it for the past couple of years. With that, it seems to be working. But as soon as we get back to PL3, PL4 with caterers available, that's when we actually have to start talking, okay, now you need to get your own caterer. Because of numbers things. If it's under 200, you get your call when needed or your type 3 or your EERA. If it's over 200, you get another national. But that's what it means by if you hear the caterers with Lend-Lease, this is what they're talking about. We're not going to go over too big about the entree, but I do want Jared or Kevin to go ahead and let you guys know what we are emphasizing with the teams about these reefers.
So when we're talking the reefers, we're talking mostly about the government provided reefers that we're getting from Viper. We know there is quite the variety of condition of those reefers. We saw quite a few issues last summer with reefers that weren't being used probably appropriately or being kept an eye on. So what we've been suggesting to the teams is set up a temperature log for the reefers, check them 3 times a day. We saw quite a bit of food that was or shift provisions that were being frozen or being above temp, holding temp form, and then we're going bad. So we're trying to, remind the teams to make sure that they're keeping an eye on those reefers, and then also additionally the camp crews that are running them, because they're turning up the temperature or turning down the temperature, making them really cold in there, or they're leaving the doors open. And then also reminding them to make sure that the product shift provisions are being rotated through. They're not just picking off the front, and stuff's being forgotten about in the back. So I think that covers most of it, Dana.
Thank you, Kevin. So now on to mobile showers. We do have 18 national showers consisting of 29 large and 10 small. We also have 16 call when needed showers consisting of 29 large and 15 small. I am in the middle of this year's annual review, so there is a potential that we could add upwards of 1 to 3 new shower vendors with some new large and small units if we get any this season or this go around. Move to the next one. Okay, so just a couple of differences between the two that we are reminding the teams. The hand wash basins, the sinks, for your national large, the minimum sinks is 8. For the call when needed large, it's 6. And for the national small, it's 4. And for the call when needed small, it's 3. Individual shower stalls are required for both national, but what isn't is the individual dressing area. So what you might have is the hall. If you get with the call when needed, it's going to have your front door here and a door down here, and you'll have the long hall with the little shower curtain. Yeah, you got a little dressing area there, but it's not the same thing as the guys who get the from the doorway on the outside. So there are just a couple differences still there. The other big one though is that the potable water tender is not required with the call when needed. So while the nationals will come with their tender, the call when needed will not. Typically, nothing has changed over the years with this. What we have with it, we did do some updates with the call when needed, but we'll go over that at the end of the showers. So they're still going to give you your showers, their supplies, are going to still clean it. They're still going to, do all of that stuff. They still have their ordering procedures just like they always have. Your first, second, and third depends on whether they're in their map at their DDP or not in their map, not at the DDP. So like if they're dispatched, they've been released from one incident, they can be available to go to another one from that one. So they'd be under this one. If they're outside of their map, then they're under 3. And if all of our nationals are gone, then we go through call when needed. And like we're telling the teams, it's none of the teams' concern what they get. They will get what Nick dispatches. They will get what Nick dispatches to them. Nick goes through the process. It will be there. They do the same thing. You get the same thing. You're going to get a large, you get a small. It's just it doesn't matter in the long run whether you get one or the other. They both give us our showers. The ordering procedures, same thing, no travel restrictions. If it's not filled out, they'll send it back. The only thing that they're doing with the shower part is making sure they want the large or they want the small. And then we're also reminding them there is no showers on Viper. There are no showers on EERAs unless we're so completely out of everything that I have, which I highly doubt will ever happen. Then we could start looking at that, but this is what it is. Payments, the nationals are the same as the national caterers. They're going to get their invoice packets, daily records signed and accepted by the FACL or the FOODLE or the IC, the FACL logs or IC. And then they will send it into the ASC themselves. The call when needed, they also will get their stuff signed, and then they will submit their stuff to the jurisdictional host agency. These guys will not take anything to finance. It is not in their contract as a requirement, but they are all willing to do it if you ask. That's what we keep telling them. Just ask and they'll give. But they're not just going to make it a habit to bring it over unless they're asked beforehand. Same thing here with the inspections and the evaluations. They have their inspections. You can use the safety, but it has to be in conjunction with this inspection form. It cannot just be the safety one. Again, additionally, your safety inspector cannot be the one that sits down, or their safety inspector, cannot be the one that sits down with them. They can sit with the FACL, the FOODLE, the logs, but they're not the one that is addressing this issue. The government representatives are. So they can crosswalk it, they can sit with them. Of course they can talk, but the person that's the direct link is your caterer and the FOODLE, logs, or FACL, or IC in the case of no one else. But there's all that. What's new with our updates? I'll let Kevin or Jared go ahead and go over the updates with the call when needed. We're doing the update to the call when needed now to give the heads up to the nationals that in 3 years when we refly this, there will be updates. But I'll let Kevin or Jared go over that for you.
Yeah, I can grab it, Dana, real quick. So again, the update to the call when needed. We have the still have the 2-hour shutdown for the deep cleaning. The update, and we're hoping to carry this through, will be a quick rinse down or cleaning, but at least a visual inspection before each person, for each user. With that, units that have their dressing area and shower stall accessible directly by a door from the outside, so a single stall, single door, those units can have a male-male or female-female or male-female staffing, because anyone can go in there and check and clean before each use. The call when needs or nationals, excuse me, just the call when needs that have a shared door that enters a hallway or corridor, and you have the dressing area and shower built off of that. Those units will have a requirement, a female and a male, so that a female attendant and a male attendant can enter each side between each uses. And that's about it, Dana.
I think we have some presenters on mute.
Dana, I believe you're muted.
Of course I am. So yeah, I was just saying that we had this where it's one male, he can't get in and clean if there's 2 other females. And we as government, we tend to forget that concept when we go complaining about our showers not being clean. So in light of that and this, the how that worked, we came up with this and said, let's get it cleaned and fixed now. So that'll be a good thing for the caterers or for the showers and us. But here's my contact information. We will share the slides with everyone, or with the POC. Please feel free to reach out. And this is where I'm at. And the next up will be Cruz and Jeff.
Thanks, Dana. If you could run the PowerPoint, that would be great. That'll keep us from having to transition. So like I said earlier, my name is Jeff Gardner. I'm the branch chief of the Equipment and Services branch, and also took over the cruise as the temporary contracting officer until we can assign it to a permanent contracting officer, as Bryce Pitchford took a new position over in the aviation branch. So we wish him the best over there, and we're filling in while he's gone and trying to get through the spring and get everything set up for this fire season. So just a little background information on the cruise. We currently have 109 Type 2 companies with 802 crews. These numbers will be changing as we had just closed the annual onboarding with the Type 2 crews, and I believe we've added probably a handful of additional vendors, as well as some additional Type 2 crews. We will be awarding some additional Type 2 crews. The Type 2 IA, that stayed fairly consistent over the last 5 years. We just have the 10 companies and the 40 crews. That is a contract, so we don't onboard that. So basically the same companies and crews that you've been working with for the last 5 years are the same ones that you'll continue to work with for this next year. All right, next slide, Dana. All right, so with both the National Type 2 and Type 2 IA, there isn't really a whole lot of operational changes being made to these. Pretty much the Type 2 is an agreement. And like I said, we're currently onboarding that and doing the annual review on that and rolling it over. We actually extended it this year, so it's actually going to be in its 6th year this year, because we're trying to align the Type 2 IA and the Type 2 so that we can solicit both of them together. So in the future, we're looking at having both both of those under contract, and they'll be under the same contracts. We're trying to align those two resources together with just different line items. Some of the changes, like I said, there's not real huge changes. I do have a finance change that I'll touch on here on the end that will impact finance. That's going to be going into effect probably in June, but right now, like I said, we're currently conducting the annual review. No changes to the specification or requirements in 2026. Mostly meaning operational specifications, requirements. Everything should look pretty much the same on those as far as the pay, the hourly rate per person, that type of thing. None of that's changing. We did update the wage determination to the current revision 73 for this year. There is prescribed fire availability with the type 2 hand crew. I know that's a question that comes up a lot, but as long as it's ordered through the resource order process and paid through the standard suppression process, meaning they're invoiced on an OF 286 and sent to the payment center to be paid, there is prescribed fire availability for the type 2s. And like I said earlier, with the extension for the type 2 BPA, it'll expire May 10th, 2027. But we're hoping to have that new contract in place probably a few months ahead of that. And so we will probably have to expire that BPA early when that new contract takes effect. Jumping over to the type 2, we just exercised the final option year 4, and that'll be good through February 7th, 2027. And that's kind of the reason we need to get that contract in place. We need to get it in place before February 7th so that we still have that resource on contract and there's no gaps in that coverage. So that's going back to expiring the other BPA earlier. So we'll try to have the new contract in place prior to February, and then we'll expire the old BPA and the new contract will take over. Just like the type 2, the wage determination was updated to revision 73. Prescribed fire is available through the type 2 IA as well. It's the same process, ordered through a resource order and paid on an OF 286 to the payment center, just like you would for any type of suppression invoicing. And then there's task orders that can be issued against the type 2 IA for project work. And that's not a resource order OF 286 type process. That's a more formal process where an actual task order is issued, specifications are developed, and that usually goes to the regular contracting branch for things such as setting work or fuels work or things like that. So the task orders for project work is not a resource order or suppression payment type of thing. It's, like I said, it's more formal through IS and IPP payments. So circling back to both of these, one big change that we're going to make that will affect finance is we're changing the travel calculation from the Google Maps plus 10% calculation that we've had over the last few years on both this agreement and contract. And we're changing it to the standard Viper type total mileage divided by 45 miles per hour. So we're trying to kind of provide some consistency across all the agreements. That was one that was easily changed through both a modification on the type 2 IA and through the onboarding process this year. We were able to sneak that change in. So that's the big change you'll see, is just that travel calculation for the crews. Hopefully that makes things a little easier. Like I said, as it's going to be consistent with Viper and what everybody's already doing for Viper, it'll carry across to the crews as well. So with that being said, that change is not in effect yet. Both modifications have to be signed for that change to go into effect, and that probably, most likely with the type 2 IA, that's going to happen probably within the next couple of weeks. And with the type 2s, that's probably not going to happen until June, once we complete all the onboarding and new awards. So what I've been telling everybody is everything that's on the site, the external Viper site or the logistics site, the pricing sheets, the contract, the agreement, all of that is up to date and current. And as soon as we make these changes and new pricing takes effect or that new travel calculation takes effect, we'll update that site. So you can pretty much rely on, if you go to that site, What on there is current and is what is good. So kind of a side note to that, we did send out the Type 2 IA modifications to adjust their annual or their pricing. We do this every year when there's a wage increase. This year there was a wage increase, so we allowed them to request a price increase. Those mods were sent out last week. We're still waiting for several of them to come back. But because we sent them out to the company, there's a lot of them out there floating around. And some of the crews are showing up with this mod saying, hey, here's my new rate. You need to pay me this, but the mod's unsigned. So if a crew shows up with an unsigned rate adjustment mod, it's not valid. So take note of that these crews are trying to get these updated rates. But they haven't been executed yet, so that those rates are not valid. What is posted on the site currently is the last option year that was exercised, and it has option year 4 pricing on that mod. So if you open that up, you'll see the option year 4 pricing, which is the correct pricing for this year, and that's the pricing that they'll get for now. Once those new mods and that rate increase is approved and I sign them and we post them to the site, and they're showing up with a signed modification, that's when you can apply that new pricing. But until then, they're not completed, and they get their option year 4 pricing. And I know some of the crew bosses are pushing this pretty hard because they feel like they're not going to get paid the right rate. But the thing is we go back after this is all done and we retroactively pay all the invoices that have been done so far, so they get that money. So it's really not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. Just remember, if they show up with an unsigned modification, that modification is not relevant yet. So we're hoping to have them done in the next couple of weeks. So that's kind of the latest issue. So I just want to throw that out to the group to keep a heads up for that. Jumping down there to the field performance evaluations for the Type 2 and Type 2 IA. There's the drop box when those are completed to drop in the performance evaluations, and those come across to us where we file them, take a look at them, put them in the contract folder. One thing that we'd like to change moving forward that I've heard a lot on is the naming convention for the evals. Does not match the naming convention for finance when they're filed. And we're going to try to align that a little better so that finance isn't renaming the eval twice or 2 different things. So the next iteration of this contract, we'll kind of have that hardwired in to where it matches the naming convention to what finance is already naming it. I think there's going to have to be like an add-on to the ends. A lot of the naming conventions for the finance box, just rely on E-number. And don't necessarily have all the information that we need to grab a file and file it based on the file name. So we'll come up with an easy way to where finance folks are not renaming things or naming things twice in order for them to go to 2 different places. So we're going to work on that. We've heard a lot of folks ask to change that, and we'll get that changed. So, all right, next slide, please, Dana. All right, so going back, this is the 3rd time I've introduced myself. As you can see, I'm the current acting contracting officer. I do have a couple folks helping. I need to add their names to the slide. Christopher Kirk is helping as well. He's kind of acting as the administrative contracting officer on the crews. He's kind of taken a lot of the intake of the stuff coming back in from us and handling a lot of those rate adjustments that we're dealing with right now. So he's been a big help. And Dana Baingard as well. She's one of the Viper supervisory contracting officers. She's also helping go through some of the Type 2, the new pricing that we got this year and some of the quotes that we got. So there's a couple folks helping in the background. And once we get everything updated and posted, we'll make sure everyone's contact information is out there, specifically mine and Chris's. So that folks have questions, they can give either of us a call. And we can help out with any issues that are coming up. So, as well as Kevin and Jared, and Dale. So next slide, we'll jump into that. So like I just touched on, the CORs for the crews is Kevin Toombs and Jared Samatachi, and Dale Newby is out there as well as a technical monitor. So you can give any of them a call if anything comes up or you're having issues. They deal a lot with if you're having performance issues or issues with specifications and some of the technical stuff that the program side deals with. They're good to give them a call. They can deal with that. They spend a lot of time in the summertime kind of roaming around to different incidents and checking on things, whether it be caterers or crews or the showers. And so they're more than willing, if there's a big issue that needs some folks there in person, to come and help out. So between the group of us with the program CORs and Kevin and Jared and Dale and myself and Chris Kirk, if you give one of us a call, we typically get the information to the right place and who needs to deal with it. So there's their contact information. And like I said, don't hesitate to give any of us a call if you're running into issues. We can try to help resolve some of them. All right, next slide, Dana.
I just wanted to kind of add that we've been telling the crew or the teams, if they want us to come out, let us know. But it's also the turnaround is if the caterer or the shower want us to come out, they can also request us to come out. And at the same time, we're also just popping up. We're not telling them that we're showing up. We're just going out and visiting and doing inspections and checking things and visiting. We're basically going out and doing our jobs. So we're just letting them know that we could just pop up and show up. Some of the caterers complain about it, but tough. Primarily because we want to see how it's actually working. We don't want to see how it's working after it's been fixed or pre-fixed because they know we're coming. But again, if you need us, please, if they need us, we will go. But also we're letting them know that if the caterer contractors need us, that we're going to go for them as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dana. Yeah, sometimes the contractors run into issues, with folks out on incidents, and maybe something's being misinterpreted. And I know we get this a lot in the Viper world where, equipment's getting failed for specifications that aren't in the agreement. And sometimes the contractors actually need our help to kind of show up and explain, inspectors through the process or folks through the process, or, what's required and what's not required. So good point. It comes from both sides. We're there to help, whoever needs it. So, all right, next slide. Oh, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and one of the other things that we're emphasizing with the teams as well is these are new contract cycles. The shower's a little bit into it. It's their second, I think we're in option year 2. But there's still, we need to be giving the caterers and the showers their opportunities to do their jobs. We need to work with them. We need documentation, because that's the big thing. If we're going to replace a caterer or a shower, unless it is something so outrageously breaking the law or something, we have to give them the opportunity to fix. It's called a corrective action plan, and they get that opportunity as part of their contract. So we need documentation, and we're emphasizing with these teams that documentation is not all written on the same day, the day that you've notified us that you've had a problem with them. We need documentation. When you have a verbal, you don't necessarily have to have that 213 signed by the caterer because it was a verbal, but they do need to document that they had a verbal, so that then when they do take the 213 over for a written and signatures, we've now got a history. Because without that history, we cannot do anything. And if we remove a caterer or a shower without that history, we can and we will lose a claim or a lawsuit against us. So we need that documentation, and we're trying to emphasize with them. And the other thing is that we're telling them they cannot go into these things with the mindset, oh, well, the other team didn't get rid of them, I will get rid of them. No, that's not how this works. We work with our caterers and our showers. If it doesn't work, we give them time, but we're also smart about it. If it's not working, we'll get them changed, we'll get them replaced, we'll get it taken care of. But if it takes a little bit, might need a little bit longer, like maybe another week to get it fixed, because it's something, we give them the chances and we give them the opportunities. just so that they can grow, because we are going to continue to need these guys over the next over the next couple iterations. So we want to grow and help them be better, not knock them down and chase them out. So that's what else we've been really emphasizing with the teams in the meetings this past couple months. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. No, and that's a good point. Definitely need the documentation. We get a lot of complaints, so either it's the showers, the caterers, the crews, but no documentation to back it up. And with no documentation, I know everybody on here has heard the whole document spiel thousands of times, but it's amazing how often we don't get documentation. The expectation is that we do something to, a resource that is non-compliant or not performing, but we have no documentation. And that's really, it's difficult, and it puts us in a bad spot legally. And so we need that documentation. If we have that documentation, we can pursue action. But if we don't, our hands are kind of tied in those situations, and then that bad resource ends up right back out on fire. So make sure to document. So, all right, thanks, David. Next slide. So a couple of websites here that are good reference websites. They basically take you to, I call it the external Viper site.
We got it.
But it's actually it contains everything. It's got the Viper tab, it's got the logs tab, it's got stuff for AIM, it's got stuff for aviation. And having the links are great, but the easiest way to get to that external site for me is I just Google Viper, VIPR lookup, and it's usually the first one to pop up. You click on that, and that gives you the full, basically external IPO or contracting page that has everything on it. So for the Type 2 IA crew agreements, the page I was referencing earlier, as far as we'll update it when the changes are made, that's under the logs tab. You scroll down to where you see the Type 2 and the Type 2 IA section, and it expands out, and there's the agreements are posted there, the contracts are posted there, as well as all the rate sheets. Same with all of Dana's stuff and the caterers and showers, it's on that same page. And there's also contact information for the FAM program support, as well as the contracting officers. So it's good to have a link, but it's also good to know that you can just Google it and go right to it if needed. So yeah. All right, next slide. That's it for me.
Now we're
Thank
open
you,
for
everyone.
questions. If there are any questions.
Yeah, there's no questions. I think we're good.
Okay, I don't see Julie. Are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, there you go.
I was just looking at the chat to see if there were any questions. Certainly, I would think with all the changes that are going on, there has to be some questions. Great information. Thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time. Maybe there was a comment or a question a little bit earlier from Trisha Wardlow, who wanted to confirm that my understanding, call when needed caterers and showers don't turn invoices into finance anymore, ?
No, they will send it to the jurisdictional host, but now that's call when needed showers. I don't know how EERA caterers go. There is no longer any such thing as a program called call when needed caterers. That doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know how EERs, whatever they do, but all three of my programs, they've been specifically told, if you're asked, like it says, we need it for cost, they will gladly bring it over. It's just not their habit anymore.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Hey, Dana, this is Kim from Ames. So Julie, We do have EERA templates for those type 3 caterers. So please just submit the resource order just like any other EERA. We do have a source list for those folks, so we'll take care of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank
Kim.
you. Yeah, thanks.
Kind of wondered how that worked on that side, so thanks.
Yeah.
And yes, we try to keep this as clear as Mississippi mud. We really do. But you know, federal contracting.
Yes. Yes. That's why we have you come and talk to us every year to remind us of all the things that are going on within your program. So
Exactly. And all three of my programs, they can also be used for prescribed and fire suppression. They just go through the NIC, just like normal. They do not get task orders to go do work permits or whatever that job codes or whatever that was that the crews can do, the type A IA crews can do. But the caterers, showers, that was something else. Someone mentioned at one of the teams, they're like, well, there's no caterers year round. It's like, well, no, actually there are. I have about 5 caterers who have themselves available year round, 12/1 or 1/1 to 12/31, and we have showers available. Oh, it became a part of the question because of the Nebraska fires.
oh, okay.
And they were like,
Okay.
well, what do we do? But yeah, no, they're all there and they're available.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Okay.
And type 2
Last
hand
call.
crews could be ordered.
Oh,
And would
yeah.
they have
Yes.
to task order through yes, I believe, Jeff, that is correct, right? The type 2 hand crews could be ordered, but would have to, that by when you say a task order, they would have to go through the IAS with a requisition and money and all that, right?
For the type 2 or type 2 IA?
It looks like IA.
Yeah, so the type 2 IA can be ordered for the project work. And that's usually project work that's pretty far outside of suppression. It's usually fuels work or thinning work. And that has to be done through a formal task order. So you'd have to issue a requisition to the regular contracting group, and they would issue that through IAS and it'd be paid through IPP. So anything prescribed burning related to where we've got job codes loaded into, and this is Forest Service. Let me throw that caveat out. Anything loaded into IROC that can be issued through a resource order can be ordered through that and invoiced on OF 286 and paid through Albuquerque. Now, and I have been having some discussions with some DOI folks on the use of some of the Viper resources, and there's a little bit more of a payment hurdle on the DOI side as far as issuing resource orders for some of the prescribed fire. And we will be having, once the Viper onboarding mods are signed and in place, there's some added bear language to those as well. And so I know there's been some interest from DOI, but they still are having some payment hurdles. So if you're on the DOI side and you're wanting to use Viper for RX or bear or anything like that, or even the type 2s for RX, make sure you talk to your business folks to make sure that those can be, the payments can, or the job codes can be loaded onto resource orders and paid through the normal suppression payment process.
Okay, last call for questions for our national contracting group updates from the group. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate getting the invite to come and speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
you've been hitting everybody, so we appreciate it. All right. Jessica Johnson, we're a little earlier than expected, but I wanted to see if you're on and available, either you or Ryan. Okay. All right. Why don't
Julie,
we?
this
Julie,
is
can you
Ryan.
hear me now?
Oh, yes. Yay. I was going to say, yes, we can.
Yeah. So I'm popping up as Jeff Gardner on Teams or on Zoom right now because my computer, I'm having connection issues. So
I feel you.
Yeah. We'll get going. We're ready to get going. So Jill Leganucci is going to share her screen. She's got our slide deck. She's pulling it up right now. but I'll do some quick intros. So my name is Jessica Johnson. I am the branch chief of the National Contracts Program Management, U.S. Forest Service and Fire and Aviation Management on the program side. And Jill, do you want to do a quick intro? Are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, Jill Viganici, and I am part of Fire and Aviation Management for the Forest Service and was asked to talk a little bit about Viper today.
And real quick, do we have Ryan Green on?
Hey, yeah, good morning. My name's Ryan Green. I just took a detail as the National Inspection Hub Coordinator. My normal job is the Great Basin Viper Program Manager. So I'll be talking a little bit about some of the inspections and some of the new processes we got coming. So thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, Jill, we'll have you kick us off.
Yeah, so confirming you can see the PowerPoint on the screen.
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay, good. Okay, well, again, thanks for having us, and we're going to kind of tag team through the slides we have today. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to go over a handful of items today, our national solicitation plan, some language changes that you guys will see in the 2026 agreements, some updates to our newly resolicited templates for 2026, a couple of new agreements we want to chat about with you guys, a quick overview of the update to our IBPA catalog. We're going to talk a little bit about training verification and inspections. So to go ahead and get started, I will drop in the chat the link to our national solicitation plan, which is what you're seeing here on the screen today. So why we wanted to show this, we just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of how we're doing the work in our portfolio. So we are working on out-year template updates right now. So meaning we're working through changes that are going to come in the 2027 agreements. And so I'm showing you this so that you guys are aware if there's something that, you know, when you guys are helping us administer those agreements in the field, if there's language in them that is confusing or not clear, or we need to update something, we want your feedback. And so, you know, you guys do a big lift for us in that finance tent, and we want to make sure that, you know, if something's not clear in how where the intent isn't clear, that we would like to hear that from you so that we could get that cleaned up and make everyone's life easier. But to that, we're obviously working on out-year stuff. So please don't hesitate to give us that feedback and we'll work through that appropriately. So some of the language changes for 2026, some of these are back-end things that we wanted to share with you, but some of these are things that you guys will see as we roll through with the resources that are coming onto your incidents. So for example, we did update some language in our B clauses, which is really the overarching template. So this will be in everyone's agreement for the 2026 cycle. And it just clarified language that we're not awarding to government entities. And so we'd had sort of an uptick from what we consider cooperators trying to submit a quote onto our agreement. So we did update some language in there to really align with the SAM registration. And so you guys will see that language as that comes across there. So, and then a couple things on our helicopter operations and our communications trailers. So we did clarify a couple things because we'd had a little bit of back and forth. So we just wanted to make it very clear that the payments will be at the rates that are specified in the agreement at the time of order. And so, for example, right now they're working on their 2025 agreements because we don't have 26 awarded yet. And so when we're right on this cusp in this, you know, easing into fire season, or really the height of fire season for the southern area and Southwest, this is really, it kind of bites us sometimes. So we wanted to put that language in there to clarify and make sure that we had something to lean back on there for the rate that is going to be used there. So, and then some more clarification language on our trailer mounted hand wash stations. So we had heard pretty loud and clear that from logistics that when the hand wash station is in use, the doors are up, which is where the labeling and the lettering for the equipment ID and all of the contractor's information is then facing the sky or hidden. And so we did clarify that we want that on all four sides so that folks can make sure that they know what they have there in camp. So We did also update some language for track pads, and this one was a little more complicated, but the gist of this is we were seeing quite a few EERAs be written for heavy equipment or miscellaneous heavy equipment that was in need of track pads. And so we want obviously that to be used appropriately so that we're not tearing up roads and those sorts of things. But we did not have that as an attribute in either of those two agreements. So we did have a discussion and feel like it was appropriate to add both bolt-on and chain-on track pads so that we had the availability of getting it on resources that potentially were already on your incident. We weren't potentially having to write EERAs for something that really was potentially available to us already. So the gist here was it must be documented on the resource order. And so the vendor would then be able to bring those if needed. And then the track pads, we want to make sure that they have 24 hours to get them bolted on. I don't think it's a small task to swap that over, but we wanted to make sure that that language was clear and so that we were giving everybody the right opportunity. But also then for the dispatch side of the house, the track pads are going to be shown as an attribute. So that group of folks should be able to roll through their dispatch priority list and see what resources have that track pad as an attribute there. So then some updates to our actual newly solicited templates for 2026. The first one is our fuel tender. And so we're pretty excited about a couple of things on here. So first off, we did add an additional type to that complement of resources. So it's going to be a smaller resource. So it is going to have 3 separate tanks with the max capacity of 900 gallons of fuel. So it's going to be 200-gallon tanks of gas, diesel, and non-ethanol. And so I think where and why this discussion started is we were seeing quite a few resource orders come across with the request for our current fuel tenders to bring non-ethanol fuel. That's not in the agreement, which means we were asking them to do work which was out of scope. And so to really wrap our arms around this and try to meet the need of the field, we felt like this was kind of a win for everyone. We also do think that it's beneficial to be able to have a smaller vehicle maneuver around camp to fuel up those generators and some of those pieces of equipment that are, all around instead of having the big truck. Also, we do think some of those smaller and tighter spike camps could benefit from having a smaller fuel tender available to them. And then also, because our agreements are open to prescribed burning, we do feel like this will get some use in that arena as well. So we're pretty excited about having an additional type of fuel tenders. There are some things in there when you're rolling through that agreement. Just pay close attention of what we're asking for and what that looks like. So we're excited about that. And we think that that's going to be a win for both us and the field there. So, and then lastly, we did go and do a little bit of homework on the fuel markup rates. And so I think you guys were probably wholly impacted as finance section chiefs there, looking at what that markup rate was and seeing that, from incident to incident, there was a big swing on what that percentage was, or it was squishy language in using your judgment, which isn't always great contractually. So we went and did a little homework on that, and we decided it was in the government's best interest for us to set that fuel markup rate. And so you'll see the language in that agreement has changed there, and that rate will be 10% for 2026. So then additional updates to the 2026 templates was the mechanic with service truck. And so we did update some of the scanner capabilities just to make sure that we were using the latest and greatest scanner and capabilities related to, how they're testing our stuff there. And then for a long time, we had forgot a torque wrench on that list of things we wanted them to come with. And so we did add that onto that list there. And then some of the stuff that isn't necessarily focused for you guys, but internally for us, we did clean up some stuff related to how they're going to submit their resumes, the individual who's qualified, so that we're making sure we have the right first name, last name, and then how we're looking at their data plate on the crane attached to their vehicle there. So. And then the last one here was the vehicle and driver. And so this one also did have a significant change. We did add a type 3 stake side truck to that agreement as well. So that's the only other additional new resource on the existing templates that we added there. We did also update the max bed length for the pickups to 103 inches. So that was done because we have an industry standard, and that has been updated as some of those vehicles have gotten larger. So, and then we did add a model year advantage. And so when we did our homework, we were, trying to see if there was vehicles that were, less desirable because of the age of them. And so we went back and kind of did some homework on what was being provided to us and what did that look like. And so we did cap for the max age of 1990, but also newer vehicles will get some advantage points in that process as well. So then we did update some limitations, or I'm sorry, the passenger limits and definitions there. And as you can see, we did roll through some of that to just make sure we were following sort of our own agency lineup there on the passenger vans or passenger vehicles. We did also clarify some language on tires. And then the additional that you may hear about from the vendor is we are requiring they have a handheld radio. That lines up with the majority of our other agreements on the expectations of the radios. And we heard pretty loud and clear from our cache that they just don't have a plethora of radios to check out. So trying to kind of maneuver that into where we're headed moving forward. So now I want to just quickly chat over one of our new agreements that's going into Viper. So it's technically not a new agreement, as Ames did a hand-jammed dispatch priority list, bless their hearts. That's a lot of manual work for us for the last, I believe, 5 years for UTVs. So as we looked at that agreement expiring and the work that our NWCG Equipment Technical Committee had done related to getting some standardization around our own agency vehicles. And when they released the PMS 200, which converted, and I will forever probably call them a UTV, but converted our own agency stuff with some specifications for off-highway vehicles or OHVs. And so we decided it made sense that we would line up our agreement specifications to those that our own agencies are using. So we use that PMS 200 when we're looking at the specifications for this solicitation. And a couple of things on this one, we did ask that they would have GPS trackers. So we heard from incidents that, they were having to chase down vehicles that were ordered by 2 teams ago and left at a spike camp that's no longer staffed. And so just kind of the logistics of finding some of those pieces and parts as the last team. We did add that into the agreements, but just to clarify on that, if we need something tracked, it is the vendor who is doing the tracking. And so we would have to reach out individually and have them see where that is located. So it's not a gotcha that we're going to be able to see that Joe firefighter is out there, doing something he shouldn't be doing on that vehicle. So it is really just the tracking if we're missing something towards the end of an incident. So the other piece and part to that is going to be a change for the vendor side of the house. These will be in there by their unique VIN number. And so this was part of the reason we felt like it fit into Viper is our model really is to give a VIN, a serial, or a unique ID to get them put into that system. These obviously fit that, but what that did to the community of OHV vendors is it really shored up that they were only going to be able to have their OHV in one dispatch list. And so that is a change for them. They're working through that as they put their quotes in right now. But we feel like that'll give us a better idea of what capacity we actually have. And so that we think that will be helpful in the end. The other thing that I think we feel like is going to be helpful here is that we will have a compliance checklist that will be attached to this agreement. And so you'll be able to see that as we work through on check-in. So this is directly out of the PMS 200. It is the typings there. And so as you'll be able to see, really, I think for our novice folks like myself, it's really about the number of seats and number of rows there. They do have the payload and the rear box capacity as well, but really, I think what we're after is, how many rows and how many seats there. So that is directly out of there. And if you need that information, it is in the PMS 200 and will also be quoted inside of the agreement there. Then our other new agreement is the Rapid Extraction Module, REMS. And so I think you guys are aware, but we did do some testing for the 2025 season with the specification that came out from NWCG, the PMS 552. And so we closely aligned with that and tested those requirements last year via EERA, did a little feedback with the vendor community, and are working on that one as well. So that solicitation is open and folks are coding on that right now. So we do also think this would help us get folks shored up just a little more in the standardization on the compliance checklist. And so this will have something that will get inspected, which is new. As an ERA, it didn't always have an inspection done. We also think it's a win for us getting them onto a preseason agreement just to get better price points with that competition. So we're hopeful that this gets to award. And these are the specifications out of that PMS 552 with the breakdown and the typings of what is required for each of those types there. So, and then we did also update the National IBPA catalog. And so it has not been pushed yet to Nick's webpage. We hope to have that done here within the next few weeks to get that pushed out so everybody could see that. But that document, if you're not familiar, I really encourage you to go take a look at it. It's a version of the agreements that's really kind of from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. So it has a picture of what you're ordering. It has the mnemonic that you need to order it into dispatch. It has the attributes that resource would come with, and kind of just a frame up of the work that resource will do. And so we're hoping folks will get some use out of that document. And again, the update for us, we did add the addition of the OHV and the REMS, some other minor changes like the track pads there on the heavy equipment agreement. And then we did add in there some of our most used EERA resources. We think that will be a win for folks because we weren't always getting good specifications attached with the general message when those orders were placed into AIMS, and we hope that will help remedy some of that, so folks know where to go to get some of those pieces and parts, so that we're all kind of talking apples and apples there. So, okay, I will stop talking and let Jessica take the next slide. And so, Jessica and Ryan, when you're ready for me to bump to the next screen, please just let me know.
Thanks, Jill. Appreciate it. So this next slide, we're just sharing for awareness what we're up to here in 26 and our plans for 27. So this year for service spam, we've been in discussions around how we'd like to get into a situation where we have 100% external verifications of our Viper vendors' training qualifications. So what we're working on for 2026 is really no change in that. The vendors that use the MOUs for records verification in Region 1 and Region 6 will continue to do that process. Meanwhile, we are building a tool for all of the vendors to utilize for future third-party verification that we want to start doing in 2027. So in their Viper agreements, there's some language in there that directs the vendors that do the Region 1, Region 6 MOU process to continue to do that. And then there's another set of direction in there for everyone else to start entering their information into what is this currently a SharePoint list. So we're doing some data intake this initial year in 26 so we can get the information into one location. And then for 2027, our intent is to have a third party and probably multiple third parties do the verification of their training records in 27. So just a heads up that language is in the agreements this year. It's an Exhibit H. And so vendors, you might hear them talking about it, but they're going to start doing that process for us here in 26 to get ready. And then we're going to keep moving. So Ryan, if you're ready, we'll do the next slide, Jill, and talk about inspections.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so Ryan Green again. I'm going to talk about some inspections here. We did get a few specific questions from the group that people were hoping we could address. So I'm going to start out with just kind of a recap on some of the inspections, some of the inspectors, and then if you guys have more questions, we can answer that at the end. So I just want to recap. We have two main inspections when we're talking the Viper equipment, right? And so one is, the first inspection is a mechanical inspection. I guess the best way to kind of describe that is that it's like their DOT safety inspection, where they're checking tires, any main fluids leaking or anything like that. And that the goal of those is to make sure wheels aren't going to fall off and, potentially hit a family in a minivan or something on the road. So the main thing is to take care of the government liability and ensure everything's in pretty good working order. And then our second inspection is more of the compliance inspection, right? So this goes through all of their agreements and this is where we check for fittings, fire extinguishers, making sure they have all the right PPE, and that type of stuff. So, and that uses a standard Viper compliance checklist, which is on the website. And this is a hyperlink right here that'll take you right to all those Viper compliance checklists. We are talking with the Ames folks about maybe putting some standard checklists on some of the ERA stuff. So you might see a column of Viper compliance checklists and maybe some Viper or some ERA compliance checklists based off of their templates that they do for the ERA. So be sure, I guess, when you go to that website, there might be some updates here in the future. We'll also be putting the OF 296 form, which is what we do those mechanical inspections on, and the OHV inspection form on that website as well. So anyway, so when are inspections needed, right? So in a perfect world, ideal world, we would always try to get a mechanical inspection and a compliance inspection on the Viper equipment as much as possible. The reality of that is that it's hard to have the amount of inspectors, and we are lacking inspectors in the system. So, our hope is, and really to take the liability away from the incidents and the teams is if we can get that mechanical inspection, just to ensure that, the vehicle's safe and compliant with all the DOT laws and regulations, we really push to try to get that mechanical inspection. The compliance is like a bonus, and we want to do that just to make sure the government's getting what they're paying for. But it's not necessarily a must, right? And then with both of those, if certain situations dictate, like maybe it's type 3 fires, type 4 fires, smaller incidents, and you just can't get any of those, it is okay. That equipment can go to the fires and they can do the work. We just ask that hopefully the people on the line are giving it a once over and truly making sure that it's similar or, basically coming ready to work. Okay, next slide, Jill. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the inspectors next. Jill, did you go to the next slide?
I'm sorry, I'm trying. I don't know why I lost the button. Keep talking, I'm working on it.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the actual inspector, some of the qualifications, when do you order the ICPIs and the EQPIs. And so the first inspectors I want to talk about is basically our mechanical and the OF 296, that DOT inspections, right? So typically the inspectors that we're going to use for those mechanical is what we call an EQPI or which is equipment inspector. The EQPMs, which is your managers, right, and ground support unit leaders. That's usually on our teams. That's the department they're in. Is they usually have those three qualifications. So with those qualifications, the equipment manager and the ground support unit leader, it's a position task book that's signed off just like any of our other red card qualifications. That's what's required. And then the EQPI currently with the Forest Service actually uses kind of a task list, and there's really not a whole lot of requirements. However, with us changing to the new PMS 310 requirements, kind of getting in line with DOI, there's a couple extra classes that are going to be required with the EQPI inspector very soon. And so that is basically a federal motor carrier class that is given that goes through a lot of our DOT regulations, laws, all that type of stuff. And then they also we're going to be requiring a tracked equipment class for those. So in the future, there's going to be a few more requirements to get qualified for those equipment inspectors. And And then also they do a task list and not so much a position task book. A lot of times our teams and our fires will use the Viper mechanic with service truck to help get those inspections done, primarily the mechanical inspections. They're not really allowed to do the instant compliance inspections on that equipment. However, we ask that if the teams are using the Viper mechanics, that if they find any kind of non-compliance issues or whatever, that at that point they get with the government representative, whether that's the EQPI, the equipment manager, ground support unit leader, before we dock those. And it needs to be before we red tag something or say you're out of compliance, we're not going to accept you. That OF 296 form needs to be signed by a government official. So yeah, but we definitely have their knowledge, and we look at their resumes in great depth. And so we want to tap into that experience that they have there and use it to help us, but we need to be the final one signing it off. And then for our compliance inspector qualifications, so that's what we call an ICPI. Okay, it's an instant contract project inspector. We recommend that they take the S262 class that is out there and available. However, that is not required to get your position task book signed off. So those are two separate qualifications. One is designated for the compliance side of things, looking into the contract, the agreement, and different things like that. Mechanical is more of the DOT safety. So when are the ICPIs needed? That was a question we got from this group. Honestly, anytime finance needs help or feels like it'll benefit them, you can order them up. There's no real threshold of when we're going to order an ICPI or whatever. Some of our teams, they roster ICPIs and they're on a pre-order just like everybody else because they like having that person there to help them out. That ICPI is going to work for finance, right? But they also work really closely with our ground support folks as well. So, and then, you can request if you're starting to see a lot more non-compliance issues, or you're just kind of, a lot like they were talking about the caterers with Kevin and Jared, anytime you guys feel like you need it, you can do it. Do you have to have one? No. The other option that you guys have, we don't have a lot of ICPIs out there that are available a lot of times. I just please recommend you guys calling your contract ops or your CORs for this Viper equipment. They can come in just like they were talking about earlier. We can come in and help you guys out if we're available. Chris and I in the Great Basin try to make it out to all of our team fires if possible, just to let everybody, to be there to help take some of that burden off of the team. So please feel free to call the CORs and the Viper folks to help you out as well. So, okay, next slide, Jill. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. And I just recently took the National Inspection Hub coordinator position. It's a 120-day detail. I'm in my, I think, second week of that detail. And so want to kind of give you guys a plan of where we're going in the future and let you know kind of some things that we're going to try to do to help reduce the burden on some of our teams. And so Jessica's created a National Inspection Hub, right? And so basically they're going to be main inspection hubs located, and this year our pilot program is going to be in Region 1, Region 4, and Region 3. Being Missoula, Albuquerque, and Boise is where we're going to have those inspection hubs. We started out small where this is a pilot program. We're trying to just figure some things out right now. And we'll kind of get into a little bit later, kind of how this works, but the targeted equipment we're looking at to come through these hubs before they ever get to an incident is our Viper equipment and certain EERA equipment coming through here. So that is my contact information right now and there. And if you want to go to the next slide, Jill will kind of just give an overview of what this program is looking at doing. So, 2 or 3 years ago, I guess we went through an OIG audit. Some of the findings on that audit that came out of it was that different geographical areas or regions were we're not doing things the right way. However, these are kind of more of a zoned IVPA. And so we came out of that with some results of we need to start standardizing some things. Example of some of the regions or the geographical areas we're doing pre-award inspections. Some were not, and so it was kind of deemed that we couldn't do those anymore. And so we're basically not getting a lot of the hands-on eyes on some of this equipment before it gets awarded. So some of our problems, and we've been noticing, we've just had a lot more non-compliance issues, or equipment's not coming in ready to work as much over the last year or two. And so this program is meant to try to look at more equipment and get a standardized inspection process in place. What will happen at the inspection hubs will be they'll get that mechanical inspection we just talked about and a compliance inspection from qualified ICPIs and equipment inspectors. For both of those, we're hoping that it's going to improve the safety and the readiness of that equipment. And the overall goal is to hopefully reduce the workload at incidents so that those ground support unit folks are not so overworked trying to get inspections done as they're also trying to get hose and pumps and stuff out to drop points, right? And the other reason is, like, some of the reasons why we put them in some of those bigger, highly populated areas was so that we had pretty good access to a truck shop if we find an issue, a tire shop, or some commerce areas where if they need to go get supplies, as opposed to going out to fire 3 hours away from a major city, finding out they have a problem, then having to come back. And so we're hoping to get some of those compliance issues fixed. So, okay, next slide, Joe. So we talked about that OIG audit. One of the other things that we're seeing, and why we're probably having an increase of some issues, is we started a new onboarding process over the last couple of years. I think 2023 we started going from the every 3 years we accept new equipment to a 5-year contract where we're onboarding new equipment every year, and that is new equipment and new vendors. So one of the issues I think we're seeing is it's great we're getting more equipment available to us on these busy fire years. However, we're also getting brand new vendors every single year in every single category. So one of the I guess downstream effects that we're seeing is, we always kind of had maybe saw some compliance issues with new vendors that first year of that 3-year agreement. But once we had a year to get them kind of up to speed, then those last 2 years were pretty smooth going for us. Well, now we're getting every category and every piece of equipment that's coming in new to us. Of that, they don't know what they don't know. So a lot of their non-compliance issues that we're seeing is not necessarily they're trying to do bad things. They just are brand new to the system and don't know all the ins and outs of it. And so, for us, that doesn't really work out on the fires. It's kind of a hindrance. So some of the reasons of why we're kind of seeing some of these issues as well. So the other thing is we talked about the geographic areas and why we put them in those places. They're also going to be kind of on main routes. It's where equipment was housed already, so that when they get an order, they just go get an inspection before they leave their home base and then go to the fire. And so this just will enable the dispatch centers, if it's operationally feasible, to get an inspection before it goes to an inspection or to a fire, that they would come in there, get all that taken care of, and head to the incident. So we're hoping that these inspection hubs are going to have some access to some of the training verification that Jessica was just talking about, some of those databases, so we can maybe look at some of the qualifications and verify that a little bit easier. They're going to be able to, we are seeing they're missing fittings, nothing major or whatever, we can start trending some of our deficiencies so that when we're rewriting some of these templates, maybe we can address it. Or if we're having a bad vendor that just continuously is not doing the right thing, it's a little bit more of that documentation that Dana and Jeff were talking about of putting together a little bit better package to maybe do something in the future. So just a little bit more accountability on the vendor and hopefully, catch some of these issues before they're coming. I think this is also one of the benefits and part of this inspection hub is that we're going to have the main inspection hubs, but we're also going to try to do some temporary or satellite inspection hubs to address some of our hot zones in a certain geographical area. So if we have 3 fires in a certain area, maybe we'll bring in a temporary trailer and have some folks come in and be inspectors, and we can get all that contracting equipment coming to that one place, and then they go to their respected fires. So that's something we're going to be looking at doing on this inspection hub process this year. And then just want to really, I guess, let everybody know that this is not every piece of equipment. It will be coming to one of these hubs every single time. It's only when it's operationally feasible and available, and it makes sense. So, so I guess the other big thing for the incident business folks, right, is how is this going to change, or what are some things that you're going to be looking for? So dispatch is going to determine if these are feasible and an inspection needs to happen for this piece of equipment. And what we're going to ask you guys is when the piece of equipment that you look at the resource order and see if they had an inspection. We're going to have you look at that, their packet that they're going to get from our inspection hubs, which will have a OF 296 compliance inspection list, but their resource order should have something on there saying they went to Boise, Idaho, got their inspection, came to the incident. So that also might mean that they're going to reroute a little bit, right? It might not be such a straight shot. If it's 20 or 30 miles out of the way to get to your incident to get an inspection, we'll probably have them come and do that, and that might increase their mileage for it. So they may be claiming a little bit more mileage, maybe because of the scheduling process and when they can come in and when they can't. They might have an extra half day of work on that. We're okay with that. We're okay with accepting that, a little bit of extra pay, because we think in the long run it will benefit the agency and the incident. However, we're going to ask you guys to trust but verify. Look at those date and times needed of when that inspection was, and is that mileage accurate, and they're not trying to add a couple hundred miles to that mileage because they came in for an inspection hub. So that's kind of the overall I guess goal of the inspection hubs. There's a lot more details. We're going to be putting a lot more messaging out to folks. We got to work with the dispatch centers, and we're working on scheduling processes and when would something come in and when would something not come in. All of that stuff is being worked out, and this is a pilot program, so we're asking for a little grace, but we're also asking for any input that could be helpful. If this worked really good, this didn't work good, and so we would please accept, would love any input on that, and any stress points that it's creating out on the incidents. We would ask you to give us. We know that we're probably going to have some failures, but hopefully we'll have more successes than failures. And then the overall goal is that if this is working fairly good, we would expand into more regions in the future years. So this slide is basically a QR code, and it will take you to the main Viper webpage, and it's going to have all the contact lists of all your COs, all of your CORs, and pretty much all of our contact lists if you guys just hit that QR code. And that's kind of about all I had. Did we have any questions?
Oh yeah, you have some questions.
Okay.
Of course, that's why we brought you on. Okay, so the first one I see is from Andrea Cox. She said, or he, can you talk, or will you, about Viper resources moving from fire to fire in the vein of new inspections? There seems to be confusion on the ground, i.e. an engine comes from an incident, has a Viper inspection. Do we re-inspect? Contractors are a bit grumpy about it. I've been told we don't need one because we just were inspected.
So I can take that one. And hello, Andrea. Thank you for the question. And nice to see you on here. So technically, if they don't break their under hire, they have been inspected. So sort of like we break it, we buy it because it's already under hire. So they are technically correct. However, the agreement allows us to inspect at any time. So it doesn't necessarily matter that they've been inspected. If we feel like there's a justifiable reason that we re-inspect them, we are authorized to do that. And I think, Julie, just looking at the chat, there was another one sort of related to that down in there. And it is really about if we break that time under hire or not. And so just being clear that we can inspect at any time. So I get that they get grumpy. So that does happen, we're aware. But we do think this is in their benefit as well. And so it's just maybe going to take a little bit of shifting of mind frames and getting us all on board with what that looks like. But we do think, you know, again, this will work out for the best for all of us in the end. So Andrea, let me know if that didn't answer your question.
So, hey, Jill, I unmuted myself. Thank you so much. This is amazing information. And I just want to thank you guys for putting on all of this training. So I think, so just my view from the cheap seats, it might, I don't know what the conversations are that are being had. You know, the Viper inspection is one thing done at, you know, typically beginning of the season. The next issue is, you know, ABC Fire inspected me. You know, I've now traveled 6 hours to XYZ Fire. I don't need another inspection. But yet we're under a different IMT. We're under different delegated authorities. And that seems to be a bit where the rub is. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that's had that issue, you know.
No, you're good, Andrea. So just a clarification. So we no longer are doing the preseason portion. And so I would think that some of that should go away to some degree because they're not coming in pre-award now like we used to do. So likely they could get to an incident and it's the first time anyone has done any inspection on them. And so this is, the hubs are really trying to kind of curb that. And then once we get that wider, we think, you know, we can really get in front of some of that. So, but to your point, if you guys feel like, you know, they're coming off of an incident that had maybe a little different mission than the one that you have, feel free to re-inspect them. We have the ability to do that. That language is there and available to you, Andrea. So leverage that. And if you get somebody super grumpy, reach out to your contract operations person for that geographic area and they'll engage there if needed. So don't hesitate to use those tools.
Thank you for that, Jill. I think that I think because of the onus of incident per incident, I think that we should kind of try to set a standard to just say, well, we understand. And I think not having the preseason inspection may clear up some of this, but you are coming to a new incident. You are under different, potentially different situation, different command team. And so, you know, working with our local IC on whatever incident, I think that it ought to be kind of a across the board, like the gentleman spoke earlier about different regions, different incidents, different IMTs doing different things. Perhaps we should think about kind of a standard, but I really, really appreciate the clarification. Thank you so much. And I'll stop talking.
No, you're good. And I would just say, I don't want to speak for Ryan because it's his gig right now, but I think we'll want to hear your guys' feedback after this season to make sure that, you know, if we miss something in the frame up of how we're doing the hubs, you guys are going to be, you know, integral in making sure that we're, you know, course correcting as necessary. So Andrea, I appreciate you.
So Jill and Ryan, I would assume that if they were inspected at one of these hubs and they came to an incident, that still holds true that we can, if we choose to, or we accept them as they are. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can if you guys want. I mean, the hope is that we would reduce that amount of inspections and kind of the SOP that we're kind of putting in place and trying to be messaging. And we have a PowerPoint just specifically for this. This is the very high altitude kind of overview of it right now. But what we would ask is that when that vehicle checks into your guys' fire, that they would still go get checked by ground support. Ground support would look at all their paperwork, give it a once over. I mean, if if equipment moves, it breaks, right? So they might get inspected 200 miles away, and then something could have happened in that 200 miles. We still want a quick verification that, you know, all the tires still look good. There's no major leaking that might have happened before, you know, in route. So absolutely, it is the incidents. They work for you guys, so you can have them do whatever you want them to.
Cool. Thank you. Juanita had a great question. So if a resource is inspected at one of these sites and are accepted, then arrive at the incident are found to be non-compliant. So it's kind of a follow-up to what you just said. Are we then required to pay them for travel?
Yes, you are. Yep. And that is one of the benefits to the kind of a selling point to the vendor, is that if they do get inspected and passed, at least they have a little bit of insurance on that. They, for some reason, they don't need them anymore, they at least get traveled, or if something happens. So the other thing I really want to mention at these inspection hubs that I probably forgot to say is the goal is not to catch them. It's not a I got you. We clearly are ordering them. We need them. We should not be trying to get them. We're going to find issues. We're also going to give them time to get those issues fixed if it's feasible. But also there will be messaging to the ordering incident that, like, this truck might be 2 hours late. Are you good with that still? Because we're trying to get them fixed so that they're ready to come to you. All of that. But the goal is that we're not trying to fail them. We need them. It's just to make sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to be. So.
Okay. One more question, maybe. Let's see. I think it's Glenda. I'm hoping it says G. Lindsay. Will the cost of the time and miles for the inspection be charged to another account? As that'll increase the cost of fire, or is this, I'm going to elaborate to this, or will it be charged to the incident? And we're talking about the hubs when they go to a different location.
Yeah, it'll just be charged to the fire. However, the inspection hubs will have they're going to have their own separate support code this year, so that, you know, like our workers and all the costs associated with those inspection hubs, that'll all be charged to their own support code. But yes, it will be a little added cost probably to the incident.
Yeah, and then I have a follow on to that too, Ryan. So, you know, we heard from leadership specifically in the Southwest that they were tired of getting equipment all the way to the incident, barely meeting date and time needed, and then not passing an inspection. And so basically leaving our ops folks in a bind because they were getting shoddy equipment. And so this is, you know, not the only reason, but this is one of the reasons that we're trying to get this to be more efficient. And so I see some of the comments in here that, you know, is it going to cost us extra money? Well, maybe, but also maybe not, because we're trying to get it so that we're efficient. When they show up at the incident, they're ready to go to work. And so I think it's sort of how you look at this in, you know, us trying to solve a problem where they can, you know, fix what's wrong while they're still in a town, instead of, you know, being non-compliant and having a whole day back and forth trying to figure out what we're going to do about that. So I do think, you know, there might be a little bit of an additional cost at the beginning of this, but I think once we get this set up and rolling everywhere, I think it'll fit into kind of the cog in the wheel here a little bit better as we grow the program. So.
Okay, we have a qualifying question. So does the inspection package coming from the hub include a completed OF 297 or 296? Sorry.
Yes. Yep. So the goal for these inspection hubs, they will come with the OF 296 mechanical and a compliance inspection, and then any other pertinent, you know, paperwork that might have been done at that inspection hub for a complete package. So yes, they will come with that.
It looks like you had a plug for a road show in Oregon, so hopefully that's on your plan for this summer. They do have a lot of equipment in Oregon, so.
Yeah, and you know, if there's a need, reach out. We'll talk about, you know, The other part of this is it's going to take time to get enough inspectors. We don't have a lot of inspectors in the system, both mechanical, the EQPI and ICPI. So part of this is that we're going to really try to focus on putting more classes on, when we can, and getting, more folks as inspectors. So I guess a plug is out there. If any of you guys want to be inspectors, please contact us and we can work on maybe getting you a trainee, and we're going to need help with these inspection hubs as far as personnel, because we are low limited on those.
Any other questions that I may have missed in the chat? There's a lot of conversations going on and there are questions. So I want to open that up. We do have a few more minutes, and we're supposed to go to 10:15 Pacific, so we do have a little more time, but I wanted to open that up.
So Julie, I see one that wasn't addressed, and I'm wondering if Ryan could maybe touch on the scheduling piece part that the dispatchers are going to do. And I would just say the Great Basin has been doing this model successfully for years. And so I do feel like some of those Great Basin folks are pretty familiar with how to do this, but we did add a component that's pretty slick on how to get scheduled. So Ryan, could you chat about that just real quick?
Yeah, yep. We're working on, we don't have a lot of time, so there could be improvements to this, but we are working on a scheduling app. It's going to be basically one website that any dispatch center could go and access. And then based on the inspection hubs we have set up, they can select what piece of equipment that is going to, and really what that bookings app is. It's just real simple for any of you guys that have worked with Microsoft 365 bookings app. It's basically like you're scheduling a doctor's appointment online or something, right? You're going to pick the date and the time that you want that inspection done, fill out some contact information, and that vendor will get an email, and then it'll go directly to the inspection hub, and it'll just automatically pop up on their calendar, and it'll say, it's a type 1 dozer coming in. And then the dispatch will send over via email a resource order, that ordering dispatch. So, this, we haven't done it yet. This is all brand new, and I'm sure we'll find some flaws in this, but we're gonna look to see how it works. We're hoping that, the goal is not to put a massive workload on our dispatchers, so we tried to make that scheduling app a very, very simple process, but effective process as well. So, yeah. And I guess I just want to let everybody know that currently right now I am in New Mexico in Albuquerque working with JR, who's the contract ops for Region 3, and we're currently setting up the location of the Albuquerque site. It's going to be sounds like it'll be at the Fiesta Balloon, or the Balloon Fiesta Park here in Albuquerque, which is real close to the freeway, so that anything coming through Albuquerque heading to fires can swing in and get an inspection. And then, we're looking at that probably realistically being around May 1st when that will be operational. And then for the one in Boise and Missoula, probably looking at the middle to the end of June for those potentially to be up and going and being available for people to start utilizing. And of course, that'll be based on, the fires and the need of them.
So Ryan, there were a couple of questions about reassignments for Viper resources, and I've had a few, I forgot here a few things popping up, so I wanted to address that also. I think Jill had thrown a comment in there, but
okay. So as far as reassigning Viper resources,
well, reassigning it, we all know. Well, yeah, reassigning and then the inspection piece of it.
Yeah, so
I can take the reassignment part if you want.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
our agreements allow for reassignment, and I'm not sure where that myth came from, but they're already under hire. So you can, as long as they have time left on the agreement, we're not bumping 2 to 1 and 14 days and all that stuff. I mean, I think we need to make sure we're using logic there, but they're available to be reassigned, no different than any of our other resources available to us. Now, if there's something specific in a dispatch guide somewhere, please kick that our way and we can have some conversations. But the agreements allowed for that 100%. So sorry, and now Ryan, you can take the inspection part.
Yep, nope, that Jill is, you're spot on. And then as far as the inspections go, if they get reassigned, once again, it's up to the ordering incident that they're coming to. If they want to, if they've been on a fire for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe potentially, that piece of equipment has, and they're just doing crew swaps, maybe they do want to get it reinspected. A lot of things happen out on the line, and that is that the incident's call at that point. So they work for you guys. So, and it says we have the right to inspect that equipment whenever we want, and they might give you a little bit of grief, but if you are getting grief, I highly recommend reach out to your contract ops and the CORs, because they shouldn't be doing that. And then I guess I want to just clarify, these inspection hubs are inspectors and ICPIs and equipment. If we are finding issues, they are going to, that's the part of it, they will be going to the CORs, and then the CORs will work with our contracting officers. None of this is trying to bypass any of the Viper contract ops. In fact, it's actually set up to work with them more so, and get a good idea of what's actually happening out there. So I saw a question that says, would you reach out to ICPIs for inspection hubs to help out if needed? Absolutely. We are working on sort of a scheduling app to see when ICPIs are available throughout the summer. Please reach out to me just via email. If you know a time that you can be available, there's probably somewhere we can help put you. So please reach out.
Hey, Jill, it's Melissa Swain. Can I ask you a follow-up question on the reassignments?
You bet.
Awesome. So I think probably what some of the folks' concern is, and mine as well, is when we have those Viper vendors say it's a late fire, it's September, this fire is going down. We have a, DPL number 55 on this fire. Can we reassign them to a new fire where there may be in that same dispatch priority zone a vendor on the DPL that's well above this vendor that we have?
Yeah.
I think that's where the concerns come in.
Hey, Melissa, I'm a taxpayer too. We use common sense. It allows you to do it. It doesn't mean you have to. So I think if that's the scenario, send that guy home and go to your list and start over. I mean, we're not dictating that you have to do that. We're just saying you can. It's an available option because they're under hire, if that makes sense. So yeah, we want you to use common sense and do what's in our best interest there. So please, 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 we allow it, but it doesn't mean you have to. So.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. And nice to hear your voice, Melissa.
That made a few people happy, I think. So.
Well, good. We like to make people happy.
Yeah, right. I saw a chat about when will these hubs be opened or start. I don't recall if that was covered, Brian.
Yeah, so we're thinking the one you're in Region 3 in Albuquerque, probably around May 1st-ish is what we're shooting for. The fire's dictating, right? They're kind of coming into their season right now. Currently down here trying to get it set up, and so we're probably at least a week and a half out from trying to do that. And then Boise and Missoula, we're probably looking middle of June to end of June. That time frame. And then Region 8 is having a need, and they've got a lot of contract equipment. So next week we're heading down there and going to see if we could start a temporary inspection hub down there for the southern area as well. So for some of you guys that might be back down there dealing with fires currently right now, that this could be happening almost as soon as next week, and we'll try that temporary model out is what we're going for right now.
So okay, so someone's got a question about Viper vendors and extensions. We all understand that the equipment can stand on there as long as the operators are did the work rest ratio. Someone asked, how long can this continue? Like, is there a cap, or is this to the end of the incident, or when no longer needed?
So I'll take that one. So technically our agreements allow the swapping with the exception of mechanics. And so as long as you're looking at those and they're swapping, say it's a piece of water handling equipment, an engine, they can swap until the end of time. There is no limitation with the exception. And I would ask maybe one of my COs to weigh in if there's some dollar threshold that would cap out that I am not my bailiwick there. So correct me, please, Jeff, Dana, one of you folks that are on here, Kim. But the actual swapping, nope, we feel like that's in our best interest. We're not remobbing an engine from across the country, you know, especially at those higher planning levels. So we encourage that to happen on those specific pieces of equipment. Now, Dana, one of you, please bail me out if there's something with the dollar amount there, please.
This is Dana. Hopefully you can hear me. I did put in the chat that there is no dollar threshold. Sometimes the GACs will have maybe some policy, especially when it comes to, say, like the medics and the faller. So just be aware of that. Some GACs allow the swapping to happen within those O numbers. But yes, like Jill said, the mechanics is the special one because their DPL is based on the person, not the truck. So the minute you swap that person out for another mechanic, that we violated the DPL. So just keep that in mind out on the ground.
Thank you, Dana.
We're getting some great questions today. I'm excited. Okay, so we've got 10 more minutes. One last call for cues, and then we're gonna pimp the next section. We've got coming up this afternoon, Serena is going to provide some Lend-Lease presentations, informations, and focusing on that finance perspective. And then we're going to have how to do the perfect payment package. So very excited about our afternoon session. We've got some great topics coming up. One last call. Okay. Well, thank you, presenters. Appreciate the time that you put into your presentations, the information you shared. This has been exciting 2 hours for me. I've learned some new stuff and very excited about the changes that you are working through, continuing to perfect our systems that we have. So
we appreciate the time, Julie.
Yeah. Thank you. It was awesome. Everyone have a great couple of hours. We'll see you back at 12 o'clock Pacific, 1400 Central.